Hi guys, welcome back. In the review video about slope, we talked about all the different ways to find slope, but there was one way we hadn't looked at yet, and that is slope from a table. So we found it from a graph and we found it from 2 points. Now a table is just a series of points. It's giving you a whole bunch of points. Most tables are going to go up in a consistent way, meaning they'll go up the same amount for each x value and for each y value. Not all tables will, so you do have to check and make sure that your table is full of linear data. So let's look at the slope in this very first table that we have over here. The first thing you have to know about tables is that the first column is going to be your x values and the second column will be your y values. So we want to find out what's happening with our x values. We want to find out what the pattern is. Well, from 0 to 1, it went up by 1. So I can write plus 1. From 1 to 2, it's going up by 1. 2 to 3, and 3 to 4. So the change in the x is just plus 1. And remember, change in x, this is the fancy way to write it. But my slope is always the change in y over the change in x. So right now for my slope, if I wrote it out, I have m equals, and I know what happened in the x's, it goes up by 1, but I still don't know about the y's. So let's look at the y's. From 15 to 17, it went up by 2. 17 to 19 went up by 2. And so I can see that throughout this whole table, the y value is going up by 2. So my slope would be 2 over 1, which I would simplify just to 2. So a couple people asked, how come we call slope m? Now the reason we use m instead of s is that an s can very easily be mistaken for a 5 depending on how you write. It's why we don't use variables like o because that looks like a 0 or I because that can look like a 1. So for slope we just use the variable m and you can think of it as move. It's how the line is moving. All right, so for this table, we used this right here. We just used what's happening in y, the change in y, over what's happening in x, the change in x. Let's try the same thing for a different table. In this table, you should notice immediately when you're looking at it that it might not be going up steadily. So we still have an x and a y. Our x column is the first column and the y column is the second column. All right, let's see what's happening in our x's. From 5 to 8, it went up by 3. From 8 to 9, it goes up by 1. And from 9 to 11, it goes up by 2. Let's look at what's happening in our y's. All right, from 450 to 660, that is going up by 210. 730 and 660. If I added 40 to my 660, I'd be at 700 plus 30 more. So that means it went up by 70. And then down here, 730 to 870, I would have to add 70 just to get to 800, then 70 more. So that means that is 140. All right, so let's focus first on just using 2 points. So let's use this point and this point. Remember, if it's a line, it's going to have the same slope regardless of which 2 points I pick. So let's see about these first 2 points. All right. So for the first 2 points I've chosen, I'm still looking at m equals. What happened in my y's was it went up by 210. What happened in my x's is that it went up by 3. So what I have for a slope right now is m equals 210 over 3. I think that can be simplified. So I would put it in my calculator to check, and sure enough, both of these have a factor of 3. So 210 divided by 3 is 70. 3 divided by 3 is 1. So I'd have 70 over 1, which I can just write as 70. Okay, now to check, let's check 2 more points just to make sure we're really dealing with a line. So let's check these 2 points. All right. m equals, so what was happening in my y's there was they went up by 140, and in my x's, they went up by 2. All right, so my slope is 140 over 2, and I know they both have 2 as a factor, so if I divide them both by 2, I get 70 over 1, m equals 70. So based on these 2 points, it looks like for sure this is a line. If I wanted to, I can check using this, using the slope formula. So let's check real quick just to make sure. All right, I erased everything from our table so it's a little easier to see again. So y2, we're gonna make this one our y2 because that's a y value. And for y1, let's make it this one. And for our x's, x2 has to go with the one that I made y2 because it's the same point. So that's this one. And that leaves this last value right here. All right, so let's fill in this formula. M equals, y2 was 450, y1 was 660, x2 was 5, and x1 is 8. Okay. So I'm definitely going to want to use a calculator on this because I can already tell I'm going to have some negatives in here. So 450 minus 660 gives me negative 210. 5 minus 8 gives me negative 3. A negative divided by a negative makes a positive. And so I'm left with 210 divided by 3. And if you put that in your calculator, ta-da, you end up with 70. So the last thing to really know about finding slope from a table is that sometimes your table might be horizontal instead of vertical. When it's a horizontal table, the x value is the value that is on top. And remember, we're looking for the pattern in y, the change in y, over the change in x. So even though the x is on top in the table, it still is on bottom in the slope formula. So we have m equals. All right, let's see what is happening with our y values. 12 goes down to 9, so that's minus 3 or negative 3. 9 goes down to 6, that's negative 3. 6 goes down to 3, that's negative 3. So in my slope formula, let me, oh, now it doesn't want to erase all of this. All right, so let's just move it down here. M equals, we see in our y's, the pattern is minus 3, so negative 3. And in our x's, negative 4 goes to negative 2. Now, if you're not sure if this is going up or down, go to where it's 0, because from 0 to 2, you know that is plus 2. And sure enough, negative 4 to negative 2, that means we added 2. Negative 2 to 0, we added 2. All right, so our slope is negative 3 over 2. We check to see, can we simplify? We cannot. So that is the final form of our slope. All right, here's one last example with a horizontal table. So remember, that means our y values are down here, money in account, and our x values are years. They're up here. So let's see what is happening in y's. 12,000 to 18,000. That means we added 6,000. 18,000 to 24,000. We again added 6,000. And in our x values, 1 to 3, we added 2. 3 to 5, we added 2. So our slope is 6,000 over 2. We can definitely simplify, and we end up with a slope of 3,000 over 1, but we would just write it as 3,000. All right, go do your practice and show me what you know.